I have fears, for sure I do. But a man in a dress will never be one of them. I think that person's a coward. And all those
seat. Welcome to my home.
I am thrilled to be here. It's beautiful.
I'm so happy. Right? Isn't it warm and fuzzy and cozy?
It is. It's cozy.
Were you warned about my sock obsession?
Oh my gosh.
So in order to get super comfortable, like I have to have my fuzzy socks.
Okay, of course.
Because I'm always cold and I live in the Northeast. So I'm like loser cold all the time, right?
I hope everyone can see my cute unicorn-esque sock.
I will say this, most people aren't that flexible.
Oh,
She's
stop.
like,
no, hey, my little sister is a gymnast, and so
of course,
she's like a little muscle. She's incredible, and so watching her, it makes me realize just how inflexible. You hear those cracking?
I actually
how inflexible I really am.
That's because you're an old retired swimmer now, right?
Retired is.
Are you
the best way to describe me?
Like you're.
I still love competing. That's my problem because you do it your whole life. And then it ends. And it's this weird, like, existential crisis. Mm-hmm. It really, like, finding your purpose, knowing your worth. I put so much of that in my swimming, and then it's just one day, done. Okay. You go from swimming 6 hours a day, every day,
Since you were, what, 7 years old?
4 is when I started.
4.
Well, of course, it amps up, but I started summer swim, all that when I was 4, and then by the time I was 8, it was year-round, so every single day. It's over, and so it was kind of like this. I enjoyed my time for about a week having nothing. Yeah. And then after a week, it's like, now what?
So you decided to blow up the world.
That's exactly what I decided to do.
Why not?
So yeah, it's been
you have to find other ways to compete. Because I do feel like having worked with athletes my whole life, right? That adrenaline rush that they all get. And I get with television.
Of course.
It's like you have to find healthy ways to replace that.
The best thing about this movement and what we find ourselves fighting for is it very much still feels like I'm competing. You set goals and you work to achieve those goals, and that's exactly what I've done here.
Wow.
Yeah, I still run. I still do triathlon.
Oh, I see your body on Instagram.
Oh, stop it. No,
I cuss it. I may cuss at you here or there when I see you in your bikini. Just saying.
Well, it's still weird. Like, my body has changed so much. I was so muscular when I was swimming, of course, because all you do is exercise and work out. And then it's kind of like, oh my gosh, am I fat? Am I gaining weight? Which, of course, like, I know I'm still fit. I'm still in shape.
Sure.
I'm swimming Alcatraz soon.
Excuse me?
Yeah. I know.
So you're choosing to swim Alcatraz.
I know. But it's really cool. We have this like project where it's a bunch of veterans who will be there. So we're doing that, and I'm super excited.
Wow. What's the training like for that?
Well, I'll tell you what my training is going to be like.
0?
Running. I can't force myself to get back in the water yet.
Well, when is this race?
July.
Okay.
So I have time. I have time.
Well, plus I
can still swim like 2 to 3 miles easy.
Hi, shark-infested waters of the Pacific.
Shark-infested current, everything, cold. I have to make it. It's in San Francisco, of course, so I have to make it through the city of San Francisco, which might be the most, like, the hardest part. So we'll see.
In a car to get through the city of San Francisco before you swim to Alcatraz. I know. And how far is it?
I think it's like 2 to 3 miles one way. I don't really know.
And then can you take a boat back?
I think we'll go there and back.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll pray for you.
So we'll see.
That's a big deal. But see, you are continuing to push yourself. I think that
I love it.
Says a lot.
I love it. I'll say, like, my junior and senior year of college, really during all the COVID stuff too, I just grew. I felt like I kind of reached a burnout point, like midway through my sophomore year. I was really struggling, pretty negative every day. And finally, really right before COVID, I decided, like, I'm going to have a good attitude. Every single day, I'm going to be consistent. And I really dedicated myself to, when I was at practice, when I was there, I was smiling, I was happy. When I left, I didn't think about swimming. And so my junior and senior year, I kind of developed this mindset, so we say. And yeah, so we'll see about all this Alcatraz.
You're like, we'll see. You don't sound that confident, but you know you're going to rock it. Like, you know you're going to do it.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Of course.
I'll be good. I'll be good.
If not, I'll just roll a video of Keith Olbermann for you, and you can hold up
so fast. I'll start swimming so fast.
Exactly.
That guy.
Oh, don't get me started.
I know.
Because I hosted several sports centers with him.
Of course. There's probably something signed somewhere where you can't say too much, but I haven't signed.
I can say whatever I want.
Hey, there we go. That man, I have never in my life, I mean, he is an old, what is he, in his 60s maybe?
Yeah.
A 60-ish, however year old man to come after a 20-year-old girl for merely saying, I want fair sports. I challenge Keith Olbermann to a race. You heard it here first.
Listen, I don't know that he could walk unassisted from the front door of this studio to this chair. So I not even a thing.
And who wants to see him in a Speedo?
No, zero.
Nobody.
Me. Trust me, the ultimate pear-shaped man. No, I'm good. I'm good.
We're good.
Thank you.
Stay in your mom's basement, Keith. We don't want you out. We're kidding.
Or in the penthouse in New York City that he does his angry thing. And I'll say this because I don't waste any of my time on people who choose to be negative and ugly. Really, that's actually been a really cool thing that I have evolved into, where I am finally not allowing ugliness into my life. And that's a choice that we have. Keith and everybody else, there's a long list of people, can go live like that. I just feel like it is a choice as to whether or not we receive that.
Of course.
But with him, I think it's actually quite sad.
Well, of
course. As pathetic and just almost weirdly scary it is, I think it's sad because when someone feels the need to attack others, it isn't actually about Riley Gaines or me or anyone or the plethora of people he attacks. It's about what's in here. And obviously he's a miserable human, and for that, I actually feel bad for him.
Of course. Well, I don't know how someone like Keith really does it, to live every single day with that much hatred and vitriol in your heart. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, Riley, you're hateful. Come on, my stance is not, I don't hate anyone. I don't wish ill on any single person. I have no animosity towards any single individual human being. My stance is very much a positive message, and it's pro-woman. It's pro-fairness, it's pro-reality, pro-truth, pro-common sense. I don't stand against.
Common sense is my favorite part. Like,
it's so true.
It is just basic, yes.
We've never, in like the nearly 250 years we've been established as a country, and of course much longer than that, ever struggled to define even. I mean, we have a sitting Supreme Court justice who can't even define what a woman is. Yeah. And no surprise, this is the same sitting Supreme Court justice who just last week said that she felt like our First Amendment rights were hamstringing the government. Precisely. That is actually exactly why we have our First Amendment rights. Exactly. And if our government can't understand or abide by that, that's precisely why we have the Second Amendment. So all that to say, we've never struggled to understand or define things like sex or female or woman or man or girl or boy or mother or father. Yet here we are.
But it's not even a struggle. You know what? Once again, it's a choice. Because these people, honestly, no one is that dense.
No,
like this is a choice for people who are trying. And you know what? That's a deeper question maybe for another time, like the why behind it. At this point, I don't even care.
No.
Because it's just wrong. And it should not even be political. No. And that's why I will continue to fight. On that note, I need to thank you.
You're sweet.
No, I'm serious. I'm not going to get choked up because there's only tea in here. If I take a sip, I'll be good. But, like, you're 24 now?
I'm 23.
Oh, great. Even better. Like, I am more than twice your age, and you have inspired me.
Well.
And, no, listen, you have to receive this. You're bad at accepting compliments. I learned that about you. Your strength to push through something you should never have had to deal with. Let's put that out there. You should never have even had to make a decision to stand up. And you did. And what you've done with it is now, we all know. But because you chose that, you inspired me to say,
so sweet.
Nope, this is not okay. I was still at ESPN. I remember talking to producers and saying, why are we ignoring what's happening in swimming right now? And there's this young woman who's standing up, who's got more balls than all of us combined. Like, she's a child. And I remember saying, why are we ignoring this story? Why? I did a 2-hour live show on SportsCenter, noon to 2 Eastern. And by the way, loved it and always will. I had a great, very small team there. My co-host, great. We, on a 2-hour show, had the time. We had Outside the Lines with Jeremy Schaap, who we could go deeper with on these topics, and we chose not to forever. And I was so upset over that because I saw you taking that chance. So I need to thank you. Do you understand now the impact that you've had on millions of people, yes, young women, but old women who were too quiet for too long?
It's crazy to me that saying something as simple as, hey, this is wrong, or, there are two sexes and you can't change your sex, and each sex is deserving of equal opportunity, privacy, and safety. It's crazy to me that has kind of sparked this conversation. And you're right, a conversation that one should never had to have been had, especially not by me. But of course, really by no one. I can't believe that we're here. But you're right in saying there were so many people in leadership positions who failed us for so long, and I didn't realize it before. Before I was directly impacted. Of course, I could see this happening, and of course, I never supported it or never agreed with it. But until I was impacted, I guess I didn't feel it necessary to take that stand. So I've learned so much since those 2 years almost, or I guess a little over 2 years since initially kind of being thrust into this position. And I have understood now the gravity that saying something so simple really has. Even this morning on my way here, I saw a girl in the airport, very tall girl. She was on crutches, and she looked at me and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're Riley Gaines." And I kind of stopped, and she was young, and she says, I play volleyball at UCLA. I just had hip surgery. She said, I just want you to know how much you have inspired me. And it's things like that daily that I receive, messages from parents, messages from coaches, of course, female athletes, from medical professionals, from spiritual leaders. Like, it's so crazy the amount of people who just need that little push to just see someone else do something that's crazily enough considered courageous, saying those things. And that gives them the courage. Courage begets courage, and there's strength in numbers. And I think people are realizing that. And I certainly believe that this tide, this overall cultural shift is happening because of people like myself and people like you. It's so cool to see someone in your position who has so much to lose, right? Like, I think people look at it, you don't have anything to lose because you've already set you've already been established. But it is so opposite from that. You have everything to lose. J.K. Rowling recently has been going totally scorched earth, which is awesome.
It's amazing to watch.
But she speaks for so many. And so what she's doing, what you have done, is beyond heroic. And it's you guys who are role models to me and continue to be. So,
well, it's a we then, but I will. You are the one that started this. You started it. Started the just the conversations that we had to have within ourselves to say, okay, because I told you on your podcast when you had me on, and it's the only time I talked about it publicly was the email that I received saying to be more careful with what I'm saying because I am potentially offending people in the LGBTQ community at ESPN and Disney, and it could be perceived as hateful. And I just remember, first of all, I'm in the middle of a lawsuit based on free speech with that company that then sends me an email saying, watch what you say.
Speech.
I'm like, wait, what? Did they check this first? But what hit me is that there was never a conversation or a question about on the other side.
No,
like, how about Riley and how about as a swimmer? So, and you've talked so much about that. I want to know that moment. Like, was there one singular moment when you had to say, okay, you're either gonna speak up or you're gonna shut up for life? What was that moment like?
So, like I mentioned, I could see, so I first found out about who this man was in November. He's leading the nation, dominating, actually not just leading the nation, dominating the entire country of women. I didn't know who it was at first. I see this name, Leah Thomas, and I'm like, hold on. I'm vying for a spot to be, a national champion. I was ranked 3rd in the country at this point in time. And this was in November of 2021.
But which race?
The 200 free.
Yep.
So I was ranked 3rd in the nation, trailing a girl who swam at University of California. She was ranked 2nd. She's now transferred to Florida. That tells you anything.
From Berkeley to Gainesville.
Yeah, from Berkeley to Gainesville. Yeah. But she was in 2nd. I knew her very well because, like most sports, your top tier athletes know of each other regardless of where you compete. It didn't matter that she was in California. We'd grown up competing against each other. So I knew her very well. But this swimmer who was leading the nation, of course, I'd never heard of. I'm looking up this person's name. There's no history of this person except for that season. I mean, none of it made sense. And so I'm scratching my head. I'm talking to my coaches and my teammates. Who is this? No idea. And we really continued to stay in the dark until an article came out that disclosed that Leah Thomas is actually Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's team at UPenn before deciding to switch to the women's team, where he was very mediocre. And that's generous.
Right, like 400 and some,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And the 100 freestyle, which he ended up placing top 8 in NCAA's, top 8 in the entire country, he wasn't even ranked in the top 3,000s among the men. Okay, so mediocre is generous. So I found out who this person was. I found out it was actually a boy. Of course, I knew that was wrong this whole time. We all did. My teammates, we knew the unfair competition was wrong. We knew that having to change in a locker room with him was wrong. We knew that the silencing that we faced from our universities was wrong. We knew all of that. But I will tell you kind of this defining moment for me upon getting to that national championships. I only had to compete against him at one meet. It was like a week-long meet, but I didn't swim in the Ivy League, so I didn't have to go to Ivy Leagues with him. He wasn't on my team, nothing like that. I only competed against him this one meet. So upon getting to that meet, I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but I was almost intrigued prior to arriving because we had so many questions. Like it felt like this circus. There was this big buildup about it. We'd already gone to sensitivity training at my school before this to prepare ourselves to learn how to use she, her pronouns. We had already done all of the things to prepare. And so it was kind of like I had so many questions. Again, we all did. What is the locker room going to look like? Is he as tall as what Instagram? His Instagram pictures.
You guys are looking him up and
yeah. So it's kind of like this sense of intriguement, like haha, still at this point. And then all those questions were answered. And I felt ashamed for feeling intrigued. I felt heartbroken, really, upon seeing this.
What was when you first saw him up close and in person for the first time?
Well, first I had to do this because he's so tall.
He's huge.
He's huge. Wikipedia says he's 6'1", but understand Wikipedia is lying to you. He is 6'4". So I mean, this Goliath of a man. His feet are huge. Of course, wearing a women's swimsuit with a bulge. Like there was so much about this where I was just like, oh my gosh.
So what was your reaction when you saw him in person for the first time? In a swimsuit.
We were kind of like, me and my teammates, actually the first time I saw him was in the locker room. And so, as I said, which let me just kind of set the scene, a swimming locker room is not a place of modesty. These suits that you put on, your racing suits, it takes about 15, 20 minutes to really poke and prod yourself into these suits. They're paper thin, they're skin tight, your nail beds are bleeding by the end of it. Most of the time you bring gloves so your fingernails don't poke through your suit or so your fingers literally don't bleed because it's so intense. You have friends like helping you try and like tuck skin rolls in your suit, all this stuff. So it's a very intimate, not modest environment. And there's also a lot of course, fully undressing.
Of course.
You get to the pool in your clothes, you change into your warm-up suit, just a normal practice suit. Then after warm-up, you change into your racing suit, which is where, you're really fighting to put this thing on. Then after that, after you race, you come back and you change back into your practice suit to go warm down. Then after that, you come and put your clothes back on. So there's 5 times of fully undressing in one session. And we had multiple sessions every day to set the scene. So I'm in the locker room. I have my back turned, of course, undressing. I believe I was going from my practice suit back into my street clothes. And all of a sudden you hear a man's voice in that locker room. Of course, it's awkward. It's embarrassing. It's uncomfortable. It was innate for every single girl in that locker room to cover themselves, whether it was with their hands or their clothes or their towels. and to leave as quickly as they could. But I mean, of course, it's an utter violation. It felt like betrayal. It was traumatizing. And maybe not even necessarily traumatizing because of what we were forced to see or how we were forcibly and non-consensually exploited. It was traumatic for me to know just how easy it was for those people who created these policies to totally dismiss our rights to privacy without even a second thought, without even bare minimum forewarning us that we would be sharing this changing space.
How was he handling the tucking himself into a suit? Like, it's all exposed? Like, are you right there witnessing this?
Yeah. So
again, was he getting help from somebody? Like you said,
I got out of there before I even saw him putting on a women's swimsuit. But a swimming locker room, like, it's basically just a big square, like a big open square. There's no like aisles or halls or I mean, of course, there's bathroom stalls, maybe 3, but this meet had hundreds of swimmers. So it's not an actual feasible option to get undressed inside of a stall. Like, and let's be honest, locker rooms in general aren't comfortable, but growing up a swimmer, you become comfortable being vulnerable in that environment. But that vulnerability was entirely stripped. And so he kind of just went off and I mean, he was in the wide open and just takes his clothes off, and lo and behold, Thomas and all of his glory, or lack thereof. So that's what the experience was like, at least in terms of the locker room. There was even one girl who, she's a 31-time All-American. She's amazing. She's one of the most decorated swimmers in all of U.S., really, I mean, world history. She's amazing. Her name's Kylie Alons. She walked out of the locker room. So I'm at NC State, and I'll never forget. She said she found a janitor's closet to undress in, and she said, she said, I'm so grateful that I found this janitor's closet, and it hit me. Oh my gosh, we are calling this progress. Yet Kylie just said she's grateful to undress in a janitor's closet. She's grateful for that closet. This is not progress. Are you kidding me? Progress indicates we're moving in the positive forward direction.
Have you ever talked to him?
Not outside of, no. At that meet, there was, of course, in the ready room and different things, very brief small talk, but no, never.
If he walked in here right now,
I'd love it.
Today, what would you say?
I would want him to know that his actions displayed an utter disregard for us as women, which is, of course, what the women's sporting category was created to protect and uphold and celebrate. I would let him know that, look, I have no animosity towards him. I really don't. Like, I don't garner this hatred in my heart. Ultimately, he was following the rules. It's the rules that are the problem. And I would be sure to tell him that. I would be sure to tell him, look, live your life, be who you want to be. Don't expect me to support it or affirm these delusions that you have, because you very much are a man. And that will never change. I would have no problem saying that to Thomas's face.
You are deliberate in saying Thomas.
I am.
Not Leah.
I am.
And not she, her pronouns, which he's Thomas, I struggle, right? Says she is. What is behind that?
I thought it was kind and respectful at first to kind of use and adhere to the whole preferred pronouns thing. I thought that's what kindness was. That's what we were told being respectful was. So I believed it. As I said, we had to go to training. We had an outside professional, whatever that means, come in and teach us, sit us down, go through these mock interview questions. We had to answer these questions to her standard before we could pass. And if we didn't, we had to go through the training again. I really believed, okay, no, I don't agree with this, but I can still be kind.
Sure.
That's not what kindness is. I realized that's still pandering. It felt wrong still. It still went against my gut instinct. And I realized, no, it's kind to say the truth. That's what love is. I'm not saying it to be offensive. I'm not saying it to deliberately hurt someone's feelings. I'm saying it to be authentic and to show that it's okay to use clearer language. Our language has been, and this is one of the most eye-opening things I've learned these past 2 years, is how powerful the corruption of our language really is. Whether it's things like saying biological woman, again, I thought it was necessary to make the distinction. Like, I'm a biological female. Thomas is a biological male. And then I'm sitting there one day, of course, taking many upper level math courses in college. And I'm like, if this was an algebra equation, wouldn't that word biological just cancel out? Like, why are we saying that?
It's redundant.
It's redundant and it's silly, and it hit me. It's like, oh my gosh, we're playing their game when we say that. Because even if you don't realize it, even if you don't know that's what you're doing, when you add that word biological as a prerequisite or a prefix to saying man or woman or male or female or girl or boy or whatever, it's as if you're subconsciously admitting that there's an unbiological alternative to being a male or female.
Yeah.
And there's not.
I've been so confused. And I remember one of my daughters a few years ago came home and said something about a friend. And I said, oh, yeah, and how's so-and-so? And she said, no, Mom, she's a they. And I'm like, a what? And this, again, this is probably 3 years ago. And I go, listen, I'll call her by her name, or whatever name she wants to be called. But they is actually grammatically incorrect. It's a singular person. And what pronoun, you didn't even know what a freaking pronoun was until the other day, right? And so I do think it is important to hold on. I don't even know. I'm like, what's cis? Like, I've had to look all this stuff up, which is why it's easier for me to just say, okay, what's your name? Great. And I'll go with that because I can't, because it changes. The goalpost keeps moving every single day.
Of course.
Okay, so when you said, this is it, I'm gonna take a stand, was it a conversation you had with your parents, with your husband, who I don't think you were married at the time?
It's so funny. My husband proposed to me. We were boyfriend, girlfriend at the time. He proposed to me the day after Leah Thomas and I raced. So, of course, he had no idea what he was getting himself into. And it, of course, it's on par with like the ups and downs and everything these past 2 years. But I will say it's been the biggest blessing, having a best friend, having someone who's a constant in a world of ups and downs, my rock. So that's the biggest blessing. But really the process was, I talked to before the race, actually, I talked to my coaches and my family and said, well, what if I don't swim? And they were fine with it. They said, we support you, Riley. And so I went up to one of the officials at the meet and I said, okay, well, what happens if I don't get on the block when, the whistle blows? He said, well, Riley, that's why we have alternates. And if you don't get up, someone will happily take your place. Mm. And so I thought to myself, okay, I wanted to race. It was my last meet, capping off 18 years of competing. And so I thought to myself, it's not fair that I don't compete. I don't want to make that sacrifice. I shouldn't be the one compromising. It should be the man who is, doing something like that. So I thought I'll compete. But my form of protest will be, I won't get on the podium. Top 8 are all Americans. And once you qualify top 8 in the morning, you're secured in that spot. So I was already going to be on the podium regardless. And so I thought no matter where I place, I'm not going to get on the podium. And so we race and we tied, meaning, of course, exact same time down to the 100th of a second. And so in these brief moments after finishing the race and before getting on the podium, being handed your trophy, named an All-American, all those things, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if I don't get on the podium, there's not even an empty spot anymore because we share a spot. So my form of protest will be entirely washed away because there will be no empty spot where a deserving girl is supposed to be. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get on the podium. It'll be like, honestly, and which it has become, based off the photos and where they're used, it'll be like this photo op thing. People will see how tall this man is compared to me, and it will show the stark differences and people will understand, which it truthfully has kind of gone that route. But after all this, I thought I still felt guilty. I felt compelled. I felt responsible for participating at this point. And that's when, well, we can talk about that in a minute, kind of how I've changed my mind on how I do believe girls should step down now. At the time, I didn't see it that way, but I've entirely shifted my perspective. But I called my athletic director the next day, Mitch Barnhart at University of Kentucky. He's been there for 20 plus years. He is amazing. He was amazing to me all 4 years of my college career. A wonderful guy, a wonderful Christian. He leads by example. He's one of the most powerful and influential athletic directors in the entire NCAA. So I called him and I said, hey, Mitch, this is what has happened. and this is how we feel. And when I said we, I meant my entire team at University of Kentucky. I was team captain, and so I made sure to ask my teammates how they felt, and 38 of the 40 on my team agreed entirely with how I'm communicating with you. I said, this is what happened, this is how we feel. How do you feel if I take a stance in acknowledging how this is wrong and harmful to women? And I will never forget what he said. He said, Riley, I love you. I support you. He said, speak your heart, stay true to your convictions, and don't worry about painting this university in a bad light because we're behind you. And I don't think people understand how desperately I needed to hear that. That is what gave me the push. My coach was incredibly supportive. One thing that I haven't publicly talked about is that during all of this debacle, one of my assistant coaches came out as trans, which was just another added layer of pressure. Bridget, who now identifies as Briggs, who very much says that she's a man now, was at that NCAA championships as well. And the day before he and I competed against each other, of course, we're in the team room, myself and my team and my coaches, and we're talking about this. It was all we could talk about. And so, I set everyone down. I'm like, okay, guys, we really need to focus on ourselves. We have worked hard to be here. Let's try and drown out the noise and work to achieve for each other and for, our own personal goals and for the team. And so I walk out of this team room, and my coach, Bridget, is on her hands and knees in the hotel lobby, bawling, crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Bridget, what's wrong? Like, what? At this point, she hadn't fully come out as trans, but had cut her hair, began using different pronouns, hadn't publicly talked about it with the team. I said, Bridget, what's wrong? And she said, how come no one's asked me how I feel about Leah Thomas? I lost it on her, Sage. I lost it on her. I said, are you kidding me? No one's asked you how you feel? Quite honestly, it's because no one cares how you feel. You're a coach, and you're sitting here crying on your hands and knees. How selfish could you be? So that was a whole ordeal, and again, another added layer of pressure. But in the end, I didn't really care. I had the support of my athletic director. I had the support of my coach, my parents, of course, my family, my husband, all of my friends. And it's not because all my friends are conservative Republicans. Of course not. It's because my friends, most of which were athletes.
But this is a coach you were close to, and then all of a sudden, in that moment, made it about her.
And now has publicly posted on every platform how much of a terrible person I am, blah, blah, blah.
Girlfriend. And this is why I began saying you should never have had to deal with any of this.
Right.
You were going to school to be a dentist?
That was the plan.
That was the plan. Okay, ready? When I was in college in Indiana, I had this whole grand plan, another long story for another day. And the ultimate plan was to get to ESPN, and I had my way. I had it figured out. And it all blew up in my face.
Of course.
Obviously, eventually it worked itself out, and I made it to my dream job. But during that time, I was in bed for a week. And my roommates called my parents, and they're like, she's not good. And, I was devastated and thought all my dreams were gone.
Right.
And my parents came to see me. They lived in Kansas. My dad was military, lived in Kansas at the time, and got on a plane and came to see me. And my mom left me with a frame, a picture and a frame with these words. I still have it in my office. If you want to give God a good laugh, tell him your plans.
It's the quickest way to make him laugh. In your face at that.
Oh, he showed me.
Oh, for sure.
And with nothing, not a negative. I don't like that connotation. Well, God did this. No. It's just we have everything planned out. And maybe it depends on what's in your heart. And if you have a faith, I certainly do. Mine has grown tremendously in just the last 4 or 5 years of my controversies publicly, professionally, and personally. And I thought about that with you,
my gosh.
Because you had this plan. Your father was a doctor, your mother's a nurse, right? They're both in the medical profession-ish. You're going to be a dentist. You had it all planned out.
And then boom, just as you said, it blows up in your face. But yeah, to speak to my faith and how that's grown tremendously, I've just been so eye-opened. I've always been spiritual. I was very fortunate to have 2 parents who took me to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I was the youngest one in the congregation by probably 70 years. So the amount of little like visitor cards that are in the back of the pews that me and my siblings like drew all over every sermon was probably ungodly. But I'm very fortunate, of course, for that foundation. But these past 2 years, oh my gosh, I've just seen so clearly how he works and how he moves and how he provides me with an unearthly sense of strength and wisdom and guidance and protection and direction and discernment, understanding when to say what. Again, those are not things that I possessed. And I kind of struggled with this initially, like thinking to myself, God, I don't want to do this. I don't know anything about our government. I don't know anything about our civil process. I don't know anything about, speaking in front of people. My face would turn the color of a tomato anytime I had to do that. I thought, this isn't for me. And then I had this impression that, I guess at the time, that God calls the equipped. But that is certainly not what he does. He equips the called. And if he brings you to it, he will bring you through it.
I need you to say that again, because that was heavy.
Well, it's what I've realized.
Calls the equipped.
He doesn't call the equipped, but instead he equips the called. And if you think about it, right? You think about someone like Moses, who led the Israelites out with Aaron and his staff. Or you think about someone like Joshua, who promised a victory over the Canaanites. Or you think about Esther, right? Before she was brought before the king. None of those people were prepared for the position that ultimately God put them in. But they all handled it beautifully and with grace, and they prevailed. And so I've just seen so clearly and felt, honestly, how he works. And I have people say to me all the time, I'm praying for you. But it's the weirdest thing because you feel it. Like I really do. I have like the lightest heart, lighter than it's ever been. And that's not, again, because of me. That's because of him. But just as clearly, let me just say, I've seen how his opposition works and how he moves in darkness and in deceit and in manipulation and temptation and affirming delusions. That's how Satan moves, is through lies and deceit. And we have seen that time and time again, which reinforces to me how these battles that we face truly are spiritual battles. There's no denying it. Paul warns us that, in Acts and Romans and several places throughout the Bible, that we'll reach a point where dark is seen as light and bitter is seen as sweet and evil is seen as moral. Mm. It's undeniable that that's not where we're at now. And look, that's not me saying that people who identify as trans are evil. No, I don't think that.
And I actually want you to make that very clear. I think that you have, but no matter how many times you say it, people are
what
going.
The headlines like.
No. And I think that both can exist. You can support women and girls,
of course,
and appreciate the trans community, and that there should be a place, just not at the expense of women. I feel like when you talk about the darkness, I haven't lived any of what you've lived, but I've studied it, and I go back to April of 2023, San Francisco State University, and what was on video there broke my heart, and it made me angry and sad all at the same time. Right. And I'm picturing you in a side classroom, right, hiding, and what must have been going through your mind and your heart at that moment when you're just trying to stand up for those who don't have a voice. And in the meantime, were you scared? Like what?
Oh my gosh, I was terrified. And again, to kind of set the scene here, speaking at San Francisco State University, a classroom setting, right? Like I was at the front, there was a podium. I think they maxed it out at 80 people. So many of which I think it was like 2-to-1 protesters in the room. So I was speaking to already a group of people who didn't really enjoy my presence, but that's fine. Again, I was actually glad they were there because ultimately, what's the value in preaching to the choir? They're the people who need to hear it. I gave them the opportunity at the end to stand up and ask questions, to which everything is very easily rebutted in this topic because it's so common sense. So anyways, it was only after the speech that a group of protesters from the outside of the room, hundreds of them, rush into the room They turn the lights off. They rush to the front, which is where, of course, I'm standing. That's when they just start ambushing me. I'm being jostled. I'm being hit. I'm being pushed and shoved, punched by these men wearing dresses.
Men wearing dresses.
Which fortunately for me, their punches don't really hurt that bad. But ultimately they did. They held me for ransom for 4 hours through the middle of the night.
What was the ransom?
Of course, they wanted money. They demanded that if I wanted to make it home to see my family safely again, I had to pay them. It wasn't until the dean of students showed up, again, literally in the middle of the night, and starts negotiating how much I owe each of them, which the price they agreed upon was $10 each, which I'm like, I think I'm worth more than $10. I'm kind of mad. I'm kind of offended by this number. Granted, there was a lot of them. So that's what they said they wanted, which I'm like, that's your cause? $10? You couldn't even get me out of my bed for $10. Whatever. But you asked me my feelings. My first initial response, and it was totally involuntary, which I think has shown me again how much my faith has grown, was to pray, but not pray for myself. It was to pray for these people. Because again, it was this almost demonic environment. Like the hatred in their eyes, the soullessness in their eyes. I just saw how desperately these people were trying to put their identity into something. But as a Christian myself, I know the only place we will ever find satisfaction is when we put our identity in Christ. And so I immediately just went to prayer. But I did. I feared for my life in those moments. Like, I'm not going to lie. Again, the hours I was kind of held as a prisoner, so it seemed.
Where were the adults? Where was...
Oh, you mean the police? They were being held for ransom with me. Yeah.
This is like a movie. It honestly is like a movie scene. Riley, when you're sitting there going through that at age 21, 22?
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of me says, like, if I'm in your shoes, I'm going, is this worth it? Like, to what end do I continue to stand up when my life, and I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but if you're being held and you're being physically
and the
assaulted,
things they were yelling, like, again, for hours.
Has that ever entered your mind? Like, why am I doing this? Like, this is not worth it.
There's a lot of things I'm scared of. I'm not this person who's fearless. I think we often conflate, like, courage with fearlessness. No, I'm not. I have fears. For sure I do. But a man in a dress will never be one of them. I will just never be scared of that. I think that person's a coward. Again, I'm not trying to dilute,
but it is bigger than a man in a dress. It's human beings with, as you said, hate in their heart to the point that they are physically assaulting you, and the words. And does that not take a toll?
It takes a toll to a degree. Of course, the time I spend traveling away from my family, the emotional toll, of course, of reading the different comments on social media, which I really try to refrain from. And when I do, the support is tenfold in comparison to the negative. But the negative ones, they stick, of course. So it takes a toll, but in the same breath, this is a hill I'll die on. Because if not this, right, because again, understand it's so much broader than just women's sports here. The premise of the gender ideology movement as a whole, the premise of it is that we're denying, of course, biblical truth, but objective truth, the most basic of truths at that. I mean, the sheer essence of humanity, man and woman, we're being asked to deny. That's as if we're being asked to deny that the sky is blue. Again, stemming from the tippy top, the people leading this country, the people in the White House right now. This is stemming all the way from that, and of course trickling all the way down. And so I just see this as looking into the future and understanding history, understanding what it means once you start to deny truth and control language, and the propaganda that's being spread through the media, the pinning of parents and kids against each other, the breakdown of our faith, the breakdown of our freedoms, understanding all of these little things for what they are. And I guess the bigger picture, it should scare everyone.
It should.
It's a lot scarier, that outcome, than what we face now. What I've faced now. So it's worth it to me. It's as if we're being asked to say 2 + 2 is 5. And again, you talk to someone from North Korea or China or Germany or Cuba or Brazil or Venezuela or the Czech Republic or Russia or any of these countries that have once embraced this Marxist, communist, socialist regime, and they'll tell you it's a slippery slope. And it's a slippery slope that we're headed down.
I 100% agree with you, and I think a lot of people do. A lot of people who are afraid to say it. And that's why I do feel I'm so grateful that you don't have that fear, the fear of speaking up and speaking your truth and the truth. What are you afraid of?
Spiders. No,
Arachnophobia?
Yeah. No, I think something that does kind of make me fearful in a sense is what happens if we don't. And it's always been like this. Again, being an athlete, like I said, you set goals. What scares me if you don't achieve those goals. That to me, a very much performance outcome, performance mindset. That's what kind of weighs on me. Other than that, clowns, don't like those things either. Forget those. I watched the movie Pennywise or It the Clown, the original one when I was way too young, and I had to take my dog to the bathroom with me for my whole life. I was so scared of the clown.
I have a visual now of you and the dog.
Oh, totally, Daisy went everywhere with me. So yeah, but from a worldly perspective, in regard to this movement, there's just not a ton. People like Keith Olbermann. People like Katie Porter, who says that I'm this, or Senator Scott Wiener here in California, who says I'm this cause celebrity or whatever. It doesn't deter me. It doesn't scare me. It really only shows me that you're right over the target. And people don't waste ammunition on targets they don't want to hit. So bring it on.
Has there been a low moment during these last couple of years in private, alone with your husband or parents where, listen, I haven't been nearly as public with this as you have for obvious reasons. I've had other things, but I'll admit that there are times when I'm like,
yeah,
it takes a toll.
That it does.
You're human. You're freaking strong, but you're human.
Of course. There have been moments where, whether it's, kind of the vitriol you're subjected to, or whether it's the consequences even of my own actions, I've realized that there have been some things even I have almost been pressured into, or, agreed to do something because I was scared to say no, and ultimately received backlash for it, and I didn't like it, and it because I realized it wasn't a good, it didn't portray me and my values and my ideals the way I wanted to. So yes, there have certainly been low moments. There have been times when I've had to take weeks off of social media, and I find in doing that, I'm so much happier. You don't get to see, of course, social media is filled with all the negative. It's filled with all the stories, again, that gets the clicks and the likes.
Right.
On both sides, of course. And so there are times, like you said, it's like, is this worth it? I see all these negative stories keep popping up. This girl losing out here, this girl being exploited in a locker room, this girl being injured in her sport. It's like, gosh, are we really making a dent here? But what I've realized in kind of having this perspective, being able to see the support versus the negative, which again, the support is far beyond, in terms of volume and quantity, it's far beyond that of the negative, is that we certainly are making a dent. If you think about a year ago, 2 years ago, it wouldn't be getting the same coverage it is now, but it's only getting this coverage because people are waking up. So I have to remind myself sometimes of what the negative attention means. And it just means that you're there and people are waking up. People care.
people care. What I have found is that the crazies are the loud ones. And it's that, that vocal minority. And the sane people just kind of watch from the sidelines and, oh gosh. And then they see you in the airport and say something. And I do think there has to be a happy medium where the sane ones need to speak up a little more. And maybe it's just for their local YMCA soccer team, whatever it might be. But we can't live in silence anymore. I think that's been proven, or else look where it's going to go. How close are you with your parents?
Oh my gosh. I am so fortunate to have just such a close-knit family. My dad, he was a football player. He's an SEC Hall of Famer. He's played professionally. My mom, she was an athlete. She played Division I softball. My oldest sister, she was an athlete. She played softball. She went to Ole Miss. My brother, he's in college playing football now. As I said, when highlighting my inflexibleness, my little sister's a gymnast, and she's incredible. She'll go somewhere big to continue competing.
It's a pretty impressive family,
athletically. It is, and it's so cool because even still, every day I'm home, it's me, my mom, my dad, my oldest sister, my grandmother, and my grandfather. We work out together every morning.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Oh, it's the most fun thing ever.
Really?
It's the best thing ever. And so, but we're all in the Nashville area. My dad has many brothers, and they all have kids, and their kids have kids. And so we're all right there. So I'm just so fortunate. I really am.
That's a huge blessing. It's funny when with all of my public stuff and some of the ugliness, and there, social media, of course. Where, I've had death threats. I know you've had all of it.
Of course.
For having an opinion on something, which is amazing. That's not the right word, but it's like trying to be nice.
Yeah.
My mom several times this is a few years back, she was like, can you go and just delete these comments? And she'd be emotional. She's like, Sage, it's just awful and ugly. And then she feels the need to, I'm like, Mom,
come on,
stay
that's
off,
my
Mom.
mom too.
Right? Because, hey, I'm a mom too. And Mama Bear comes out.
Totally.
And I am 51 years old. My mother still is protecting me. And I'm doing that to so now I get it as a mother. But I remember saying to her, Mom, no. And this is years ago, long before I decided to file a lawsuit and all those things. I said, Mom, if I delete those comments, I'm making it look like it never happened and those words weren't used, and they were used. And I need to always remember that. Yes, and I didn't realize the toll it took on the people who love me the most.
Of course.
My mom and dad in particular, and my children. You're not there yet with kids, but with mom and dad and siblings, has it taken a toll on them at all? How do they handle you and your stance?
My younger siblings, again, my little sister, she's 15 years old, so she's in high school. All her friends look up to me. So she's jealous that her friends totally think I'm cooler than she is. And so she looks up to me a whole bunch. So does my brother. He would never admit it, but he absolutely does. My oldest sister, she is pregnant right now, which is so exciting. Yeah, I'll be an aunt, so I cannot wait. But now that she's pregnant, she's, of course, and understandably, as you said, now that she's becoming a mother, she has this kind of hesitation, Riley, untag me in your photos. I don't want people finding me. Or, don't post me. I don't want you posting my baby and all this stuff, which again, I understand because the threats and the risk, they're real.
They are.
But my family, my parents, I don't think I could express enough just the outpouring of love and encouragement that my family as a whole has received. My dad is, we have this coffee club every day after we work out. We work out at 6 a.m. And after we work out at 7 a.m., there's a coffee club. And it's all of these older men who come in to the coffee shop, and every night they talk about what was on Fox News the night before. And so it's so funny. They're all so proud. They see me on there. Of course, they're going to watch this and shout out Coffee Club. They're going to be so excited. But it's just been granted, I live in Tennessee too. I talk to my friends who live actually I have one friend who lives in Connecticut who has Paula Scanlon. She's also been a fierce defender of women's sports.
And she was on the UPenn team with Leah Thomas.
But comparing our like livelihoods, her living in Connecticut and me living in Tennessee, so different. Like, so different. I haven't lost one friend. I haven't lost any family members. I haven't had one opportunity that's been shut down. Even dental school, I was so nervous that my dental school was going to totally shut me out. They told me when I called them, keep in mind, I was like about to move to go to school. Like I was already deposit down, like seat accepted. I was ready to go. When I called them and told them that I was struggling with making this decision on what to do, like, do I do dental school? Do I hold off? The dental school said to me, Riley, like, we love what you're fighting for. They said, understand this spot will always be here. We will hold your deposit for whenever you want to come. But people don't understand that. People don't realize, I think we put so much internal pressure on ourselves. Again, I was just as guilty of this, but I haven't had any doors shut in my face. And if they have been, they're doors that I probably wanted shut in my face. So it's been amazing. My family has only received an outpouring of support. I think my address, my parents' address, not my home address, but my parents, has been leaked on some, like, I'm going to imagine like a Facebook group where it's like all these people who collect autographs. And so my parents daily in the mail get like people sending over photos that they want me to sign. And so I always sign them and send them back, which is just kind of funny. So my parents are like, Riley, stop directing this to our house. Like, take it to your house. No, Mom, it's going to keep going to your house.
What about your husband?
Like I said, he's just my rock. He swam at University of Kentucky. He actually is from England. So he grew up in England, spent 8 years in Dubai, moved to Malta, moved back to England, came over in 2018 for college. So we were the same grade. We started dating right away. It's so funny looking at his progression because, of course, England is a lot more progressive. And so he was never like, a liberal or anything like that, but it was kind of like this laissez-faire, like, I don't really care what's going on. Apolitical, like it never really bothered him. But coming over here and just really seeing how divisive our country is, like how it's either you are this or you are this. He says in England, of course, there's still, you still have a party system, but there's a lot more gray area. He was like, here, at least in terms of representation and media and different things, there's not a lot of gray area. It's either this or this. So he was really eye-opened.
Yeah.
And of course, feeling like he needed to pick a side. You can guess which side he picked. But it's so cool because they don't have guns over there. They don't have hunting. They don't have trucks, nothing like that. And all of those things are things that...
You're in Tennessee.
Oh, come on.
It is country and the South, between your drawl and then his English accent, I'm imagining.
Oh, it is so funny. He carries everywhere. He drives an F-350. We hunt all the time. We're going on a bear hunt soon. We just went on an elk hunt in Colorado. Oh yeah. Like, it's so funny. And his accent, it is like it's like a country British accent. Someone the other day asked him if he was from Mobile, Alabama, and he was like, Riley, like, it's time I go home. Like, this is not okay.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's so funny.
You ruined him.
I ruined him.
Yes.
I take full credit for ruining him, too.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
What are your, hunting, fishing, whatever it might be. Like, when you have your downtime, just the two of you, whether it's outdoors, indoors, what is that like? I mean, I hope you're able to.
Definitely. Definitely. Fitness is still really important for me. So, like I said, running all the time, exercising all the time. Also love to eat. I think that's why I like fitness, is because I know it allows me to eat what I want to eat.
Whatever you want, yeah.
Oh, totally.
Do it while you can, girlfriend. Things change.
For sure. I'm realizing. So all those things. But yes, hunting. We love shooting. We have a shooting range on the back of our property. I've got 2 cute little dogs, Springer Spaniels, who it's a boy and a girl. My girl dog is pregnant right now, which I'm super excited about. So I'm going to be a grandmom. I cannot wait. She's due at the end of April. I just bought a horse. I'm a sucker for animals. I'm a sucker.
How big is your property?
We live on 5 acres, but we just bought another 6 acres.
Wow,
so,
right there in the same.
Yeah, so.
Because you need your animals.
I need my
animals.
Your
land.
I need my land. We have a pond, so all those things. But yeah, I get sucked into these like animal rescue pages, and my heart melts. And I'm like, I'll have them. I'll have all of them. And my husband's like, Riley, I'm going to kill you. Stop.
Yeah, because you're never here.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I'm stuck with the animals.
I know.
So grandma and grandpa are on the way with you being a grandmom for dogs.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna be an auntie with your sister's baby girl, boy, baby boy. What about becoming a mom yourself someday?
I know.
Do you want to?
That's of course. I want a huge family. That's the next step, I think, in my life, is kind of figuring out what that looks like. You know, people always say, well, you know, now's not the right time, but like, is there ever a right time? So, and I love the chaos. I do. I love chaos.
You thrive on it.
Oh, I totally do. So I'm like, yeah, let's have kids. I'm ready. So Louie, if you're watching this.
I mean, we can end this now if you need to go take care of some business.
I know. But honestly, I can't wait to be a mom. And I think to myself, it's a large part in, you know, why this is a hill I'm willing to die on, is because I mean, I can't imagine being in the position that we were in, facing what we faced, experiencing what we did, and not fighting for my future daughter. I can't imagine it. It's so much bigger than just myself. People say all the time, you know, stop whining. You're just a sore loser. Okay, it's not about me. I'm done competing.
You're done. That's
I'm
the
done
thing.
competing.
Yeah.
It's about my daughter, my younger sister, your daughters. That's exactly who we fight for. So yeah, that's the next step, I think, in my life.
Have you thought about that balance word, which I actually try not to use?
Right.
Because balance to me makes it sound like something is equal.
Right.
And what I know from having kids who are 22, 20, and 18, and a full-time job in the public eye, you never feel fully balanced. And as a mother, we're so darn hard on ourselves. It's constant. And so, but you don't also want to, well, some do. Some women are fine saying, you know what, I've done the professional thing, or I have no desire to, and I'm going to stay home, which I admire. There have been times where I've been envious of women who had that option, frankly. What does that look like to you as you have established quite a career for yourself, and you're a family person, and I know you're going to be a hands-on mom? Oh,
totally. Just like my mom was. I can only hope to be as awesome as my mom was, and of course still is. But you're right, the whole balance thing, as you said with my animals, like, I'm not home a lot. There's a lot of travel that goes into this. I don't think people understand the amount of activism, truly, that I really do. And I'm proud to say I'm an activist. I think for the longest time, I avoided saying I was an activist because the picture in my head of an activist is like someone with blue hair who's like screeching. And so I was like, no, I'm not an activist, but like I absolutely am. And I'm proud to be an activist. I travel state to state all the time, and advocating for these bills that are being passed or introduced in different states. So for example, just recently we had a big win in Mississippi, where I've spent a lot of time. We had a big win in New Hampshire. I just testified in Alaska last week. So there's a ton.
When you say we had a big win?
Mississippi just heard their Women's Bill of Rights. I think it's HB 1607, which defines and codifies this word woman in law. Independent Women's Forum has been really on the front lines of developing and implementing and lobbying basically this piece of legislation in these different states, and I'm very happy and proud to work alongside them in doing that. And so they voted on it. It passed, of course, overwhelmingly. In New Hampshire, they just heard their women's sports bill, which passed the House, which was never a given in New Hampshire. In Alaska, I was able to meet with the legislators. Their bill was only K through 12, protecting sports K through 12. I encouraged them and urged them, really implored them to take the bill further and include the collegiate level, which they now have done. So I spend a lot of my time following and tracking and understanding and helping even legislators learn how to talk about these issues in a way that really is communicating a pro-woman message.
Yeah.
So I spend so much of my time doing that.
And so if you're gone every week for at least a portion of the week,
right,
and then you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Several times is the plan.
Yeah.
God willing.
Yeah. I'm imagining, I really do think things will cool down after November when we get a new administration, which I'm more than confident we will. I think that will kind of, maybe that's wishful thinking. It could go one of two ways. Of course, it could amp up, or it could, if we can have a House controlled by Republicans, I think the Senate is very doable. There's a couple key states that we've been targeting. Montana, if anyone from Montana is watching this, make sure you're voting Tim Sheehy. It's so crucial we get Tester out. Ohio, Pennsylvania, there are several states this cycle where a Senate race will be heard.
And all these people you're talking about are people who will officially define a woman and protect women and girls in sports. That's why you're saying
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so if we can get a Republican-controlled Senate, House, and White House, I think things will iron out.
I think at the end of the day, it frustrates me that this is even political. It shouldn't even have to be, because I don't even like talking about my politics, because I don't think it's anybody's business. That's how I was raised, actually, despite what people might think.
Right.
And however, this, for whatever reason, has been politicized.
Hyper politicized.
And now you're not shy about your beliefs at all. You're all in on it. You mentioned this earlier about preaching to the choir. And that's one of the problems, is that when we're strong on this topic, we're automatically put in a box, and especially then once we say, okay, Republican, Republican, Republican.
Right.
Most of those people agree with you.
Of course.
How do you plan to get this message out to those who already think that you're a nut job who is enjoying your 15 minutes of fame?
And that's a comment I get all the time.
I know you do.
You're right.
And that's why I know that's not you.
Oh, totally.
But the only way this changes is if you keep going hard on those people. But are they even going to listen?
Right. To your point, I tried to initially, I felt like I was, when this first started, I'm talking 2 years ago, within the first couple weeks, getting on Fox News, Daily Wire, all of these different outlets, of course, that are conservative or right-leaning, which was wonderful. Felt like I was shedding light on what was happening, spreading awareness. But again, I felt like I was preaching to the choir. I felt like I was whining almost. So I took it upon myself to start reaching out to left-leaning outlets, CNN, MSNBC, even a couple local stations. One in particular was Kentucky Sports Radio. His name's Matt Jones. I think he's like equivalent to Clay Travis. I think he really wants to be Clay Travis, to be honest with you. But he runs, I think it's the #1 Apple podcast and sports, whatever. He covers Kentucky sports. So I reached out to him. Thought it was really weird he wasn't touching this topic. And so I knew where he stood. He has a book called Ditch Mitch, talking about Mitch McConnell. I knew where he stood politically. But I said, hey, you cover Kentucky sports. I would love to talk with you. I would love for you to help spread the story. To which ultimately, I did this through Twitter. We called each other on the phone, and he told me that basically I was hateful. There was no way he was going to give me a platform. Mm-hmm. And that's the response I got from every left-leaning outlet. Was either no response or they weren't going to give me a platform to continue spreading hate. But since then, I have found it so effective in honing in on the messaging. Again, very much being pro-woman and calling out people who don't stand with women. It's never been on the wrong side of history to stand with women. For example, Governor Evers of Wisconsin vetoed a piece of legislation that would protect women's sports. And so you call them out for what it is. You say, why do you hate women? And no one can really disagree with that.
They don't have to answer. The key, what I've noticed is that none of them actually answer. I did that recently, calling out several senators, female senators, who have chosen to not even allow a bill to come to vote. No. And I do think that is the only way. However, I too have tried. Not one liberal outlet has reached out, and I'm like, all about having conversations, and so are you.
It's important.
But you are like, I am desperately thinking of ways as well, because if people sat with you and just talked, it isn't throwing things, it isn't name calling.
No.
It's like, let's have this conversation. So like, what can you do besides reaching out to these outlets? And I mean, have you considered speaking less about the politics and where your politics lie, your views lie, to focus more on the fact that this shouldn't be political and this is just women?
Definitely, which is, again, something that's important. And to really show, I guess, how this, to me, transcends far beyond party lines, far beyond whether you're Republican or a Democrat. In Pennsylvania right now, working with a Democrat member to carry the Women's Bill of Rights. Because again, I don't think it should be, I think it should be whoever wants to stand with women. If President Biden came out right now and said, I want to preserve Title IX, uphold Title IX's original intent, rather than pursue what he is right now, which is an illegal administrative rewrite of Title IX, equating sex with gender identity. Let's say he came out and said, hey, I stand for women's sports, protecting them, all the things. I would publicly applaud him.
Absolutely.
I would easily, proudly, I would do that. And I would, thank him, express my gratitude, continue to highlight how many women that impacts. So yeah, this isn't about red versus blue, nothing like that.
I think it's just hard because I've tried to have those conversations too, and they don't want to, is what I've found.
But that's what we need. We need civil discourse. That's how we advance. That's how we unify. We're really, I think we've reached a point where people don't actually even want unity anymore. Which, what a bizarre.
Well, but it's all tied to money, right? Of course. And there's a lot of money in calling everybody a racist or a transphobe, and I certainly been on the receiving end of that a little bit too. And I'm just like, wait, what? How do you? When are you running for office?
Oh gosh, I still have sanity. I'm still sane. I can't fathom. God bless the people who do. We need those people. We need good people in office, but man, I think you have to be a little bit crazy if that's something you're willing to do. So we'll see. There's no, at this point in time, I don't have a ton of political ambition. I'm just not, that's not something that drives me. Again, who in their right mind would want to do that? So we'll see, maybe way, way, way later down the road. But right now, and I find myself a lot more effective when being in this position, being able to go around, being able to fully embrace this activism role and the way that I kind of have been. I find it to be a lot more effective. You can have more impact that way. So we'll see.
Do you worry about people getting tired of your message?
Well, I'm tired of saying my message. So definitely. I've said the same thing till I'm literally blue in the face. But I keep going onward because people, and what I realize, speaking especially on college campuses, right? My message is very similar on each campus. That's no surprise, but every single time I tell the story, faces in the crowd drop. It's their first time hearing it. People don't know what's going on. People are awakened. More and more people daily are awakened. And so to be someone who can contribute to that, which again, the messages I get, people say, thank you for opening my eyes. I had no idea, especially after going on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Shut up! You did not.
I'm so sorry. I deserve these. I deserve this. No, that was too good. No, that was too good. I cracked up when I saw that.
Go.
When I did go on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Whose?
Dana White's. I will say, going on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think I was the only guest ever to be shorter than him, which was super cool.
He's how tall?
I don't know, not much taller
Wait, how
than
tall
me.
are you?
Like 5'6", probably.
Oh, wow.
So he's pretty
So when I get the invite to go on his show at some point, I'll be sure to know who I'm talking to. Like, that's the funny thing. As if I didn't know who I invited onto my set. I call my kids the wrong name all the time. Like, this happens. Anyway, I will be sure to wear, like, my 4-inch heels.
Exactly.
And make my hair really, really big. But by the way, yeah, when you go on that show, I mean, and I watched the whole thing, of course, like, that's another level. And people...
And his audience, it does extend beyond just the conservative base. And the messages I've received are people saying, look, I'm a lifelong liberal. Or people even saying, like, I'm a part of the LGBT community, and I had no idea this was going on.
And so many in that community are against what's happening.
For sure.
I mean, the frustration levels that I have so many of my gay friends, lesbian and gay friends, who will write me and say, please don't be silent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, this is almost 80% of the country that agrees, which means it's obviously well beyond party lines. But that's the beautiful part, is you have an audience like one with Joe Rogan, and it can completely, I mean, that's proof that you do need to continue to do it. But I wonder, the activist role does take a toll. It's taxing, the travel, et cetera. There's still the dental school option out there too, you know? I mean, in the back of your mind, do you think, gosh, do this 10 more years, or 2 more years, or 6 more months, and go back to dental school with parenting? Like, what does the future look like to you?
You know, I don't know if I've really put a timeline on it, because again, it's more so kind of when I achieve my goal, I'll proudly, happily move on with my life.
The goal is what exactly?
The goal is to where, I guess, broadly speaking, women aren't losing out on opportunities. They're not being exploited in locker rooms. They're not being injured in their sports. Or men aren't infiltrating into our prison systems or into our sororities.
So that's the thing. This goes beyond sports.
So far beyond.
It's almost never ending.
Exactly.
I feel like it will be difficult for you to step away.
For sure. It will be now. I've made so many friends. I've made so many connections. People who really do care about this topic. And in doing that, it makes it enjoyable. It makes it, of course, worthwhile. You see the urgency of it, the necessity of it. And so we'll see. But dental school, it'll be there. Now I can't imagine going back to school for 4 more years.
You never knew that you'd be like on the dark side, one of us, as part of the media, because Games for Girls, that is a very good podcast. You've had a lot of guests, and your interviewing skills are like kicking. So how has that been?
It's so fun to be on the other side. It's something that I thought would be just easy. I thought it would be like, it's not. It's not. There's a lot of preparing. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So that's why you're so amazing. You've been doing this for years. It's incredible. But it's awesome. We interview policy experts. We interview world-leading scientists, athletes, people like yourself. You joined the Games for Girls podcast, which was awesome.
You got me to open up, and I went off and got in trouble. And actually, when I was on your show and whatever clips were circulating on social media, that is how Dana White reached out to me to say, I saw you on Riley's podcast, and just thank you for standing and for doing what you're doing.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks to you, Dana White reached out to me, and then the rest is history with he and Joe Rogan.
Oh my gosh. And now here we are. And now you don't even remember his name, Sage. He took the time to reach out to you.
And got on his plane to come here just for this and left right away.
Isn't that the coolest thing?
Hello.
And you got to go to the UFC.
Yeah.
How cool.
Oh my gosh.
Let's go to UFC 300.
I got to do 301. 300 is on my daughter's birthday.
Fine. 301.
I just want to end with, it's just been such a pleasure for me to finally see you live and in person. And as always, you're who you are though, like on and off camera, so to speak. I know you don't care what other people think, because it's proof, or else you would not have pushed through to this point. It's incredible. But if you could tell people, like, yes, I'm strong and I'm tough, and I'm this, and I'm a woman of God. Like, what do you want people to know about, not Riley the activist, you know, but like the human?
Well, that's just the thing, is that I am a human. Like, I have a family. I have a life outside of this. But people forget that. And I think I'm just as guilty, honestly, of other people. Like, it's very quick. It's very easy to be able to get on social media, make a quick comment, and me leave and continue on with my day. Or of course, someone else doing that to me. But it's like these are people. I think what people need to do, including myself, I'm certainly including myself in this, is having a better balance of truth and grace, which is what our Lord and Savior did so well. Of course, he loves all. And he shows that through his grace, but he doesn't falter on being true. We saw the Super Bowl commercial, right, of him washing feet. He washed the feet of sinners, of tax collectors, of prostitutes. But which of course shows his grace, but what that commercial left out, but what the Bible does not leave out, is at the end of that scenario, every time in the Bible, is he says, now go and sin no more, which shows his dedication to truth. And so I think that's what we can all do, is be stewards of course, Christ and of his message and his gospel, and balance those two things better. Because if you're all truth and no grace, then you're kind of just self-righteous. But if you're all grace and no truth, then you're kind of just stupid. So I think we have to, myself included, do a better job of balancing those two things.
Yeah. So did you answer that question? Like, what do you want people to know about? Like that you're, my oldest is 22. You're like the same age.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's times where I worry and I'm like, I want to hug you. And you don't need that from me. But I'm like, oh my gosh, are you taking care of you? I'm
low maintenance, I will say. I don't require a lot. So I am taking care of myself. I'm very easygoing. I'm very go with the flow. All of those things.
You seem to have such a peace.
Oh, I just am.
Despite the chaos that
it's
you
just
thrive
serenity.
on.
I just feel this.
That's your faith.
Again, it is. It's this hand on me, and he provides me with that. I haven't always been, this lax and whatever and going with the flow. But in this stage of my life, I am. Like, I'll hop on a plane. I can sleep on the plane. I'm good. I don't need a lot of sleep. Get out my running shoes, pack them with me. I packed them here. I'll go run. I'll come back. I'm just very go with the flow. My husband, when we got married, I ordered my dress online, $40.
I love you.
Had my friend do my hair and makeup. Had my grandma's neighbor make our cake. I'm just like, whatever. He's like, are you always going to be this low maintenance? Probably not. But for now, I just am. But answering your question of, yes, I'm an activist, but I'm also a sister. I'm also a daughter. I'm also a wife. I'm also a child of God. We all are. And so taking into account all of those things, it should show you how that's just a little piece of me, this forward-facing position I've taken. But it's just that. It's such a small percentage of who I am, what makes me me, what has instilled me with the security and the confidence and the leadership to be able to do what I'm doing. It goes far beyond just this little activism role that I've now been thrust into.
Are you proud of yourself?
I am. I am. I think it's easy to get down on yourself. It's easy to feel like you're not doing enough, or there's always something more you could be doing. But I am proud. I think, of course, in comparison to maybe other people my age, or comparison to even some of my teammates or those in authority positions who agreed with me yet stayed silent, I'm proud of myself for stepping outside of my comfort zone, for sure. But as a whole, take away the comparison side of things, comparing myself to other people, which as athletes, we tend to do a lot. I am just proud of myself. I do think there are things that, in terms of whether it's something as simple as, like I said, having and showing more grace, I think there are things I can do better, of course.
Of course.
But I am proud. I am. Yeah.
A lot of people are. So people that you'll never meet for the rest of your life are so proud of you. And inspired. And I meant that. I started by saying thank you. And thank you again for making me a little tougher and realizing, oh no, we gotta go. So thank you.
I've told you this before, but when I saw initially you and Sam Ponder kind of take this like little leap at first, I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this is huge. So it's you who inspires me. You're so smiley, you're so genuine, you're so authentic, you're so kind and beautiful. Like,
thank you.
I don't know how anyone could hurl negative things your way.
Yeah, you do. You receive it the exact same way, and that's okay. But it does come down to being having a faith for me and for Sam. Samantha's faith is extremely strong too.
Yeah.
And also to know when you're right, it's a little bit easier to receive that.
Of course.
You know.
Of course.
And there's very few things I know. Like you can have opinions on this, that, and then there's facts. When you base it on facts, it makes it easier.
Boom.
I just at 23 was nowhere near able to do what you're doing. So by the time you're my age, girlfriend, if you're not president of the United States, I'm gonna be like, something is wrong.
How about you run for president and I'll be VP?
No, you're president, and I'll be transportation secretary and get rid of Buttigieg.
Oh, please,
okay,
can you? I'm like, please. Maybe bridges won't collapse. Doors won't fly off planes.
Exactly. No, I'll be the press secretary.
Okay, amazing.
Okay, done.
Anyone could do better than what we have now.
Gain Steele.
Oh, I like it.
What year?
I like it. Oh, well.
20.
It's going to have to be, is 2036 an election year?
Listen, I need to be alive. I'm a lot older than you, okay?
I got 12 years, so.
12 years till you're legal?
Yeah.
Okay, in 12 years, I'll be hopefully alive, but I will be a grandparent.
You're younger than you'll be younger still than both of our options now.
I love you.
Yeah, you're the best.
Thank you for doing this.
No, thank you.
We didn't cry. We almost did.
That's
thank
impressive.
you.
That doesn't always
happen. But I should have thrown more of these at you.
You should have called me Leah Thomas.
I would never do that.